hanging out with you.
Me too. I mean, great to have you on.
Always
And
fun.
yeah, and hope
Any
how was your
violence?
weekend?
How was my week? I would, it was.
Posthumous synthetic beetles, USA by proxy. Toxins in your water, tiny plastic in your offspring. Plastic in the groundwater, plastic in the clouds. Oxys in the reservoir, we tried to flush them out, but we didn't move them very far, just out into the river, where the critters didn't want it, but we nonetheless delivered. Impact isn't something we historically considered till our waterways are fetid and our crops are dry and bitter. We won't connect the dots before the heavy cost of winter, before the DNC would see us vote for lesser Hitler. America by proxy, propaganda for beginners. It's Jimmy Kimmel interviewing chatbot Heinrich Himmler, as those who march for peace are being gassed by the police. A separate, safer crowd demands the bombing never cease, till all that's left of Gaza are its ashes on the breeze. Only then can the oppressor soundly sleep. America by proxy, 2023. It's the AI-rendered Beatles John and George were forced to be. It's AI-rendered Edith Piaf singing on your screen as the wishes of the dead are dipped in piss behind the scenes. And that's what gives that hideous, uncanny valley sheen, that plastic sort of lifelessness that's seeping out the seams. The hologram of Freddy they tried passing off as queen will tell you death does not release you from contractual routine, won't free you from the leeches that already drank you clean. The suited, smirking parasites were not so quick to flee. Your body won't be cold, but they'll be plugging tours and teas. They plotted out your comeback, you just won't be there to see. America by proxy, a giant failing mall. A year at most from shutting down and leveling it all. And once it's been demolished, I'll come leave a ring of salt and pay respect to John and George. I know it's not their fault. I'd like to take my whole discography, cram it in your generator, dial it to Zionist. I'd make my very own Antichrist, Jesse Jet but fashified, and settle things with violence. In half a line I'm dialed in, leave him no identity to shield behind or hide within. I'd like to pull out all his talking points, disconnect his socket joints, cue the tiny violins. I know you hated being forced awake. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. I bet you wondered why they made you wait. Pity not the vultures, they've enough to eat. Pity not the structures laying at your feet. Cannot see the sky, but there's this rainbow in the creek that spells pity-free speech when we can't afford to speak. That's Agenda 2030 on some early release. It's just our policy of never-ending chemical leaks. That's the cholera awash in your embedded beliefs. It's the billionaires who tell you what you'd better believe. And sugar, if you don't agree, then that's what we call extreme. Now if that isn't fascism, I'm going back to sleep, 'cause words have lost their meaning and I'm trapped inside a dream where we turn the gears while living in the spaces in between. I know you hated being forced awake. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say.
Poor thing.
I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. I bet you wondered why they made you wait. My dial doesn't go to delicate. I'm writing for when Biden drops and Madam Zero delegates come stumbling up the podium, square peg in her element, popping OxyContin like they're velements, laughing as she pawns off all our pensions for Ukrainian development, depleted rounds and cluster bombs, the shit that stunts development, all buried under excrement, accepted as American intelligence. A contradiction in its eloquence. Terms of surrender penned by hands that felt the threat of disconnect, if not dismemberment. Oh, what little proof you have to fake to make a nation love the bomb and change its tune and warp its temperament. Oh, the dues you'll pay for NATO membership. Oh, the things you'll say that no one's ever gonna hear. 'Cause you begged for all the censorship and now it's finally here. And you're tongueless out of terror and friendless out of fear, and about to turn the wheel with all your loved ones in the gears. And that's how it's been done. 250 years, there's nothing new beneath the sun, and no one trusts their eyes and ears. And scientific breakthroughs must be signed off by your peers, and autonomy's been stalking all our jobs like sickly deer. Well, maybe it's not every job. I should have made that clear, 'cause it seems like it's creative jobs we're seeing disappear. There's an app for writing novels, there's an app for writing hymns. They need people digging trenches, they need people splitting limbs, they need people building fences, keeping other people in. They will always need our backs to break, they'll always need our skin. And it took a lot of editing to turn us into this. It took years of careful programming to strip us of our wits. 'Cause your artificial worker, intelligent as it is, would make it half a shift and say, I'm too smart for this shit. I will not take a pittance for a day of scrubbing floors. I won't make enough to pay for food but still prepare you yours. 'Cause you can't confine a healthy mind to mindless, thankless chores. Once you've made it smart enough to spot inadequate reward, you can't refuse its basic needs, then ask it still for more. Deprive it of its dignity, you modify its core.
Just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Who are these people?
It's us. We're these people.
I love that intro. I love that intro so much.
I'm here with a different co-host this time, Oz LaFave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Friend of the show, DJ Joe Nice. How are you, friend?
What's good?
And you hear Nick say this all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world.
We are so fucked, you guys. Again, I'm sorry for being cynical, but seriously,
No.
we're fucked. We are
Right.
fucked. We are well and truly fucking fucked.
Just appreciate all the work that you do and the platforms that you all are providing.
Hey, you. Doing good. How are you guys doing?
And as independent media, we have a responsibility to be, we don't hide our bias, obviously, but we must stay true to the facts.
What's up, Pam?
Cheers and salutations. Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
But I am here with a man that I've been waiting to talk to for the last couple of years, Nico House.
As an educator, what I would suggest is that, first of all, podcasts like these are made.
So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future.
What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
Well, politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.
See, I would call that guy the Black Obama.
No. The issues that we talk about, listen to us.
As always, kids, Labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
INN News.
What's up, everybody? It's another episode of INN News. It's me, Reef Breland, with my co-host, as always, Collin Radix-Carter, a.k.a. Care Bear. Care Bear, how are you doing? You doing okay?
The better question is, how are you doing?
I'm okay.
You want to explain? You want to explain to?
I had my wisdom tooth pulled Monday, so that was fun. You know, they took the crowbar to my face, and my face was swollen for a couple of days. So, you know, now we're here. I don't have gauze in my mouth. I can actually talk to people. It's nice. And, you know, ibuprofen works. So, you know,
yeah.
we can make it through a show. I think we'll be fine. So,
well, you have to, because we have a guest.
We do have a guest, Assange activist, because those aren't showcased at all, apparently. So figured we'd do that. We're going to bring on Halo Benson, and we're going to talk about some Assange stuff. So I say we bring her in, and let's do that. Hi, Halo. How are you?
Hey guys, I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. We're coming up on Day X, as you know, which is Tuesday, Wednesday coming up, right?
Yep, the 20th and 21st.
For those who don't know, this is the indictment trial, right? Pretty much.
This is the last ditch effort right now in the UK courts.
Yep. Which, you know, luckily we get some journalists who are able to actually look at this, who aren't, you know, kept from doing so. But I want to showcase this piece by Joe Lauria, super quick, right? A radically different world since Assange's indictment. The Assange case is a centerpiece of an emerging global challenge to U.S. dominance that did not exist in 2010 when the U.S. began its legal pursuit of the publisher, says Joe Lauria. Special to Consortium News. They kind of kill Julian Assange stuff, so super happy to have them around. Joe writes, the world has changed dramatically since the United States began its legal pursuit of WikiLeaks publisher Julian Assange, bringing new risks to the U.S. if it persists in pursuing him to the end. The geostrategic situation and the state of the media are today nearly unrecognizable from 2010, when the U.S. impaneled a grand jury to indict Assange. Conditions have changed significantly since even 2019, when he was dragged from the embassy and the indictment was unveiled. The United States is in the midst of suffering its third major strategic defeat since the process against Assange began, bringing potentially significant consequences for the U.S., the world, and possibly Assange. In the past 3 years, the United States has experienced humiliating defeats in Afghanistan, Ukraine, and now Gaza. Afghanistan hurt American sensitivities about their precious prestige, which American elites care so much about. The rest of the world takes it into geostrategic calculations. The U.S. investigation of war in Ukraine, intended to weaken Russia and bring down its government, has instead turned into a debacle for the United States and Europe of world historical proportions. A new commercial, financial, and diplomatic system has emerged in opposition to the U.S.-dominated West. This has been slowly developing, but was accelerated by Washington's provocation in Ukraine. It is a way more serious problem for the U.S. than the mere loss of prestige. Add to this the worldwide disapproval and condemnation the U.S. is facing for its blatant complicity in Israel's ongoing genocide in Gaza during a war. The U.S. and Israel are not winning. The result is U.S. legitimacy has significantly weakened around the world and at home. Is this the moment to bring a journalist to the United States in chains to stand trial for publishing truthful material that exposed earlier crimes by the United States? The risk of doing so at this moment, a very different moment from 2010, are serious for the U.S. at home and abroad. Domestically, the Bill of Rights is at risk. Internationally, the bully is losing credibility. This is seen in the forthrightfulness of some world leaders, particularly in Latin America, who in the spirit of the new non-U.S. world have confronted the United States on its treatment of Assange and have demanded his release. The establishment media, which by definition runs cover for the U.S. to commit crimes and abuses wherever its interests are challenged. It's suffering its own precipitous loss of legitimacy. There's a spectacular growth of both social and independent media's influence since 2010 has helped create a worldwide movement in defense of Assange and the basic principle of a free press. So, before we let Lauria finish this up, thoughts so far? Collin, Halo, anything you got? I know there's a lot to add to this, so, you know.
I genuinely feel since 2019, our government has kind of been feeding a revolution. You know, I mean, like, we have lost all legitimacy, all credibility, and they keep doubling down on it.
Yeah.
You know, at first I thought it was just Trump. He likes to double down on stupid, but it seems that the Biden administration is kind of following the same course, and we're have become a laughing stock, and that's a good thing.
Yep. Collin?
I mean, we've talked about this on the show before, but I'm worried. And I think especially given what's happening in Gaza right now, not to say that's not important, it is, but I feel like given our news cycle that has been saturated with news from Israel, that this has been ongoing for the last few years. As long as I've been, you know, in this space and kind of been involved in independent media, I've known about Assange, and it's just sad that not more people are talking about this, especially right now, given the extremity of the potential of what this could lead to by, you know, possibly as soon as next Wednesday.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about it enough, I think, in independent media right now. And so we know in mainstream it's not going to talk about this at all. But, you know, so the idea of, like, you, Halo, you know, kind of leading, and other activists who've kind of been leading this charge all along, I do commend you, you know, to doing this work even when it's thankless and you guys don't get any recognition. And I think as something as huge as free speech, which we claim to uphold in this country, you think that more people would take this situation and really bear it close, and we really haven't. But I think in spite of that, you and others have led the charge in this anyway. So I really appreciate you moving forward in spite of how little coverage I would argue this story has been getting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, and I think
I remember.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh, well,
please.
when I first came on Twitter, like, before coming on Twitter, I didn't know anyone was doing anything about Assange. Like, my family, we started in 2015, and I didn't. No one even knew who he was. No one knew what WikiLeaks was, and then I got on Twitter and found my people, you know, and it was like, oh, there's all these people that care about what's happening with Julian and care about the threat to our First Amendment. And so that's, I mean, for me, I guess, from being at it so long, to me, it seems like the whole world is paying attention, not the media as much as they should, or unfortunately, they do a nod here or there just because they mentioned it once, you know, and then they leave it alone. But this has just been continuing for so long that I think that we would be better off with constant coverage. Do you know what I mean? All Assange, all the time. That's what needs to happen. But what are you going to do? You know?
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think depending on what we're talking about, Julian has uncovered, you know, the crimes of the U.S. in that area. So they definitely don't want it publicized too much. But Joe Lauria is going to finish this up because I don't think I should do all the talking. I think someone else should probably take over once in a while, right? So we'll let him finish this up.
Thank you for inviting me to speak.
This did not start at the right time. What was it? I think it's in here.
U.S. hubris and intransigence, which seem to be are serious for the U.S. at home and abroad. Domestically, the Bill of Rights is at stake. Internationally, the bully is losing its credibility. This is seen in the forthrightness of some world leaders, particularly in Latin America, who, in the spirit of this new non-US world, have confronted the United States on its treatment of Assange and have demanded his release. The established media, which by definition runs cover for the US to commit crimes and abuses wherever its interests are challenged, is suffering its own precipitous loss of legitimacy. The spectacular growth of both social and independent media's influence since 2010 has helped create a worldwide movement in defense of Assange and the basic principles of a free press. The question is, how aware is the Biden administration of this new world, and how will it react? At a certain point, US hubris and intransigence would seem to be headed for collapse. But until then, Washington will no doubt double down in denial and in vengeance. It's not giving up in Ukraine nor in Gaza. The neocon grip on power in Washington over the realists remains. Will the extremists remain ascendant on Assange too? In December 2010, Vice President Joe Biden told the television news show Meet the Press that the Obama administration could only indict Assange if they caught him red-handed stealing government secrets and not receiving them passively as a journalist. The Obama administration concluded he was acting as a journalist, even if they refused to call him one and didn't indict him. So what changed for Biden? Why does he persist in this prosecution begun by his mortal enemy Donald Trump and Trump's CIA director Mike Pompeo? The indictment until today still only deals with events in 2010. Nothing has changed legally, but everything has changed politically for President Biden, the head of the Democratic Party, with the 2016 DNC leaks and the CIA Vault 7 releases the following year. Biden would have hell to pay from the DNC and the CIA if he dropped the case. Still, he's probably not so foolish to want a shackled journalist showing up on U.S. shores to stand trial in the midst of his re-election campaign. The High Court here in London has been good at dragging things out and could easily do so until after November. The Assange case is thus a centerpiece of this global challenge to U.S. dominance that did not exist in 2010. To the extent that U.S. leaders are aware of what is happening to U.S. standing in the world, their propensity is to lash out with the only argument they have left: lethal force. In Assange's case, it is legal force with lethal consequences. Leniency towards Assange would win back some respect the United States has lost, which would mean it couldn't suffer another blow and had finally woken to the new world it inhabits. Crushing him would be yet another step towards its demise. The U.S. really doesn't need him. It has enough blood on its hands.
Thoughts? I mean, Joe Lauria kind of lays it out for people. So, anything?
Well, I think that one of the things that we're dealing with is the lawfare, like how he said, the legal, having to become familiar with the term lawfare, and their intent to drag this out. One of the problems we've run into is we don't know what's next. Like, they've taken things so far beyond what is legal and acceptable. I mean, the UK is trashing their Magna Carta right now. It's not just us, our country trashing our Constitution. But it's hard to know what comes next. Like, if they decide, give him this last appeal, and then they say, no extradition, how do we know that they're not setting up an indictment for Vault 7 leaks or something else? Like, I always think back to them saying, the punishment by process, keeping him wrapped up in courts for, 25 years. And then I keep thinking, will the Biden administration do anything? Will they drop the charges? Like, right now, there's this resolution in the House Resolution 934, to basically protect journalistic activities. And as much as I love this, I love that we finally have some sort of legislation actually happening, or not, that it has been presented in our Congress. But basically, we're having to beg our representatives to uphold the Constitution? Like, that's basically what it is. We already have a First Amendment that does protect journalistic activities. We shouldn't have to be doing oh, hey, how about we sign this? How about we try to get them to drop the charges against Julian? This shouldn't even be something that's happening, but we are at that stage where they've lost all credibility and now everything is brute force. I mean, they're doing nothing. If you look at with George Floyd, the whole world protested, the whole world. And what did that get us here? I mean, I've never really seen such big protests in the United States in my lifetime, and it got the police a bigger budget. Like, I think that we need a different approach. We need something different, something tangible. I used to be a door knocker with petitions and whatnot. And, you could see change. 20 years ago, you could work on something for, 6 months, 7 months. You could get a little bit of change. Now they don't care. Like, it's like a slap in the face. Like, no matter what they with a straight face go on camera and talk about press freedom with a straight face.
Yeah.
Like, it's I feel like I'm being punked or something. And maybe this is
especially
what
recently
death
with
throes of an empire look like. I
with
don't
the
know.
Navalny stuff, I'm sure that all feels like a slap in the face right now when they're literally about to extradite Assange. So you have every journalist screaming about journalistic integrity right now, not knowing half the story about this. So, but we do have some hopefuls out there still putting in the work, like Freedom of the Press put this together. I think this went out with the stream Ray McGovern and them did recently, I do believe. So we'll give this a watch.
For decades, news outlets have depended on the right to publish government secrets.
Nope, come on. You can do it.
But all that could change if President Biden's Justice Department finishes what Trump started, prosecuting WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange under the Espionage Act.
Everybody back there in the fake news media, look at all of them.
Donald Trump repeatedly calls journalists
enemy of the people.
And he's already promising a crackdown on the press.
Yeah, they say it's okay, you're going to jail.
The only thing stopping him is the First Amendment.
The nation's Bill of Rights.
It protects the rights of journalists to publish the truth.
We're going to go with the story, because the terror is right here in this room.
Whether the government likes it or not.
Today, the Trump administration announced new criminal charges for Julian Assange under the
till you see who's in
1917
this.
Espionage Act, a terrible piece of legislation and rife for governmental abuse.
The government is now trying to criminally prosecute people for publishing secret stuff, and newspapers and magazines publish secret stuff all the time. That is the bread and butter of what we do.
The Espionage Act charges against Julian Assange have nothing to do with hacking, spying, or even espionage. They also have nothing to do with the DNC emails or Russia.
I know you. Given everything else that we know about the WikiLeaks guy, I can feel through the television right now your mixed feelings about what I am saying.
Everything that Assange is charged with under the Espionage
Based
Act
off her
happened
propaganda.
in 2010. Assange is accused of speaking with a source, convincing her to give him documents, receiving those documents, and then publishing some of those documents.
Run that, baby.
In other words, acts that journalists engage in every day.
So much has been written about this in recent days as a result of the substantial leak.
The Obama administration didn't like Assange, but they chose not to prosecute him.
2004 to 2009.
They knew it would create a dangerous legal precedent. But when Trump got into office, he indicted Assange. Trump doesn't care about destroying press freedom.
Keep your voice down. What a stupid question. You are a rude, terrible person.
For him, that's a feature, not a bug.
But it should concern Biden if he really thinks
Journalism is not a crime.
And it should concern anyone who wants the press to freely report on Trump's abuses.
I'm the president of the United States. Don't ever talk to the president that way.
By God, I'm going to fight that son of a bitch's paper.
The Assange prosecution would hand Trump the perfect weapon to go after the New York Times and Washington Post.
Police in this small Kansas town raided...
Prosecutors would also be emboldened to crack down on local journalists across the country. You don't have to like Julian Assange. This is not about him. It's about the future of the Fourth Estate and American democracy.
whether this case goes forward will be a part of Biden's legacy. The future of journalism is in his hands.
It's time for anybody who cares about press freedom to put their personal feelings about Julian Assange aside
Tell the Biden administration to drop this dangerous prosecution immediately.
Do the thing. Go to the website. Very easy. Type it in. Do the stuff. Funny Rachel Maddow being in there. I found that funny. You know. So, I mean, I feel like Assange should have just given people more provocative names like Deep Throat. I think he would have worked out better. You know? But what do I know?
I think it's ridiculous that people are talking about your personal feelings about Julian Assange.
Right?
What is that?
Yeah.
What is that? How do you have
Well, that's-
personal feelings? This has nothing to do with that. It's just absurd. Do you mean your personal feelings of jealousy? Because you're seeing what journalistic integrity looks like?
He's
So
not
full of
even...
shit.
He's a publisher. He published documents. I wouldn't even want to give him the journalist title, even though I think he's earned it. You know, he published stuff that was given to him, and it wasn't even necessarily him. Like they published stuff out from under him that he then had to like publish on top of that with redacted names and all that crap. That was pretty much, what was that, WAPO? Or no, it was The Guardian, one of those. Oh, someone will remind me in chat. So, but we got one of our favorites, Comrade Misty. She spoke to Julian's brother Gabriel recently and told me that he still doesn't know if Assange will be permitted to attend the hearings in person yet. He's applied for permission. Stella confirmed today that they still haven't heard back. How absolutely fucked is it that he has to apply to permission to attend his own hearings in the fight for his actual life? And I'm willing to bet it is denied and he will have to attend via video link again. How the hell does that work? You're not even allowed to attend your own trial.
Well, and when he did, they had him behind glass or, you know, in a box, like,
right.
Like he's some sort of actual criminal or something.
And they don't
it's
even give him
mind-boggling.
the like Hannibal Lecter cool mask either, you know? like at least like tie him
I think
to
it
the
would be a Guy
stretcher.
Fawkes mask.
Right?
Like let him at least, yeah.
It's just, what do they think would happen? It's like they won't let him be in front of a camera. They won't let him have what do you think he's going to do in the 5 seconds that he's in front of something? It's just wild. So,
You know, I have a theory about something,
Please.
if I may.
yeah.
Okay, so you know how so at one point Julian made a statement that when all is revealed, Washington would fall, right? And I think that these people, always suppose that people are just like them, right? So you've got these shady, corrupt people. And I think a lot of them are afraid that Julian has all these vast troves of unpublished things that he's sitting on, and they want to silence him. Like, they don't seem to get it, like, because they don't have the same moral principles, the integrity that Julian has. Like, he's not sitting on anything. He's told us everything that has been given to. Do you know what I mean? I think they're terrified of, oh my gosh, what else does he know? What else does he know? Not understanding, because they can't appreciate that somebody is a genuine, honorable person. So I think so much of it is this fear thing, you know,
Well, and
of
even
what
if it's
else he
just
might say.
talking about the treatment that he's getting now, you know, who knows what is actually happening behind the walls of Belmarsh. So, you know, craziness. But Mint Press reporting Australian MPs, including Anthony Albanese and cabinet members, have overwhelmingly voted in favor of urging the government in the US and the UK to permit Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, to return to his home country, which feels like a strongly worded letter to me, but, you know, nice of them to show up at the last minute. So another bit of good news. Russian artist Andrei Malantkin plans to fill a safe with artworks that he values around $40 million, including pieces by Picasso, Rembrandt, and Andy Warhol, and to destroy them should Julian Assange die in prison. I feel like that's a rock star move to do. That seems like a Banksy move and a half, to destroy artwork. So, but yeah, and I think He was also given citizenship in Rome recently, correct? If I'm not mistaken. So
Honorable citizenship in Rome.
I don't know what
And we
that
were
does for
working-
him, but you know,
I think it's more of a show of like the solidarity.
Solidarity.
I work with a group called Free Assange Wave, and it's kind of just this loose network of different, heads of groups from all over, or just like lone wolf kind of activists. And it's kind of just, I don't know, it's like a network that we have. And they had asked me, what about doing that for Tulsa? Do they do that? And we do honorary citizenship in the United States, but not in specific cities. So
Right.
one of the things that we're trying to work on now here in the US, and by we, I think it's just me right now, but I'm talking to people of maybe getting him honorary degrees. If they
Okay.
can give an honorary degree to some actor, surely we can, petition anybody that's alumni somewhere.
Right.
I'm trying to work that angle, but I think a lot of it, it's like, well, what's the point of it? Just to show support, just to get his name in the news. Like the reality is that every person I've talked to, and we're talking, it's been like 9 years for me now. When you tell them what's going on, and you don't even have to get in depth with all of the stuff. If you tell them, this information that about the Afghan war logs or whatever, the guy that did it, they've got him in prison. People immediately, they can't do that. We have a First Amendment. That's the first thing people say is
Right.
they can't do that.
Right.
So it's a matter of making sure that enough people know what they're doing. And once that happens, then that's it. It's going to be over. And I genuinely don't think it'll be something that happens by getting in the streets, even though I love being out in the streets. But I think it's like actual tangible actions. Make the
Yeah.
phone calls, write the letters, just write the letters,
Well-
talk to everybody, talk to your coworkers, talk to, we need tangible actions, because the people that are in power, we're not going to sway them, but it's the little guys that are up for reelection every 2 years, or, you know what I mean? The people that aren't incumbents, that haven't been there for a long, they are swayable. We're seeing a little bit of, huffing and puffing here in Oklahoma. We've become kind of hard to ignore. And I think that we have a really good chance of getting a couple of our representatives to sign this resolution 934. And I genuinely think that we just have to reach, that momentum thing where we start kind of gaining ground. But like there are, anything that you can do to, this is where I'm going to do the spiel of what can you do? This is what you can do.
Right.
Look and for supporters at home, because not everybody's an activist, but there's millions of supporters out there. And so if you're a supporter, Google the community radio stations in your town. And when they're having, every place has somebody that likes to talk politics, whatever party or, whatever ideology, but there's always somebody talking, local community talk radio. Call in, send them an email, say, hey, can I come on and talk about this? And they're happy to have you on. I mean, it's hard to come up with guests every day. So, people can do little things like that. Or one of the other things that I'm trying to do right now is getting, Kevin Gosztola, Stefania Marizzi, and Nils Meltzer's books into our public libraries. I think it's really, really important. When we're online, we sometimes forget that there are tons of people that just aren't at
Right.
all. And if you go to the library, if you live someplace where your library is carrying any of those books or any of Julian Assange's books, good for you, but there ain't any here. And so what we're trying to do is I'm encouraging people, go get a library card and then start requesting these books. You can do it online. You can also, the library has a free streaming service called Canopy with a K, and ask to have Ithaca streaming on there, ask to have Juan Passarelli's documentary, The War on Journalism, screening on there, or, like all these little things. And maybe, one person asks, they don't do anything. Two person asks, they don't do anything. But when 10 or 15 or 20 library holder, you know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
also goes a long way to keeping our public libraries still receiving funding, because
Absolutely.
that's something that they try to take all the time. But there are a lot of little things that we can do. And when people ask me, what can I do? Like every single thing you can think of, and as often as possible.
Well, I think thinking outside the box is super useful, which great segue into what we brought you on to talk about,
Thinking
which is
inside the box.
thinking inside the box. Yes. So you do these boxes and you send them to people, and please tell us what's in the box, how to get them, what you should do when you get them, all that fun stuff. So
Okay. Okay, so every box has been different. This current box is completely surrounding House Resolution 934. And
Okay.
so what is in there is excuse me, um letters to, okay, there's 32 letters in every box. There's a letter to the Committee to Protect Journalists, to ask them to add him to their list of imprisoned journalists, because that's bullshit that they haven't. And then there's a letter to your representative asking them to sign House Resolution 934. And then there's a letter to every person that has signed the resolution saying, hey, you know, I'm Halo from Oklahoma. Can you please speak with my representative, Frank Lucas, about this? You know, and then there are letters to the U.S. Judiciary Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of Federal Government, asking them to open an investigation into how they've weaponized our government against Julian. And I definitely think we can gain some ground there because Thomas Massey is on that subcommittee, and he's kind of always been supporting Julian. So there's that. And then there's also postcards to every other representative in your state, asking them to sign. And then there's also a list of, I want the boxes to be able to work in tandem with Twitter, with online. So there's a list of all of these people's Twitter handles so that when you put that letter in the box, you can tag them online. Hey, Frank Lucas, I sent you a letter asking you to sign this. And if we can do that and be coordinated, I just genuinely think that's be consistent about the application of pressure. I mean, when I call my representatives, they literally answer the phone like, Frank Lucas's office, how can they know it's me? Do you know what I mean? Like, I've been through more interns than, you know what I mean? But it does work. Like, they get familiar with it, and if there's enough public pressure, and these boxes, and how you get them is just ask me, and as soon as the money comes in, I'll send them. I don't charge anybody for the boxes. I don't think that you should have to pay money to have your voice be heard.
Right.
And literally everything is customized to a T. Like when you get your box, Reef, hopefully soon, you'll see it's to your, very specifically to your location. And literally all you have to do is take a letter out of the envelope, sign it, put it back in, seal the envelope. That's it. They're stamped, they're addressed. Like, it could not be easier for the people doing the box.
Well, I
It's
know
a
it
lot of
does
work,
cost
but
money.
it's worth it.
So we put your donation link in the description below. People want to assist you in that effort. And you're on Twitter at Halo Benson, right? Right underneath you. People should be able to find that. Should be in the description
And
as
Tulsa for
well.
Assange.
Tulsa for Assange. Got it. So yeah, anything else to add, Care Bear, before we say bye to our guest? I think
again,
that's it.
just thank you for your work. Thank you for your activism, and we'll be thinking of you next week. And hopefully your work will screen dividends, we hope.
Thank you for saying that.
So
yeah.
And thanks for having me on, guys.
No problem. Anytime. We love having the Assange peeps on. They know what's up. So I think that's it. So we're gonna be right back for our audience at home, and we're gonna say bye to our guest, and then you get to listen to us talk about our other 3 stories for the rest of the night, because we all know you love to hear our voices anyway. So, but anyway, be right back, everyone. Say bye, fam.
With all their might, one blown collective fuse. And I hope the worker after me has something more than heart. I hope they truly know their worth. I hope that they're too smart. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains. And I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today. Now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. Away. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. Ooh, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. You're following, that's idolatry, that's just fake. And all that wallowing that you tolerate, that's not faith. The kings of colony watched autonomy make our graves. The kings of colony know no policy, only rape. Now once you fall asleep, it won't bother you what they say. But the kings of colony, while they slaughter, they still complain. We say, please color me, still too solemnly, still too plain. All hail economy, praise the pharmacy, seas in flames. They're buying up Hawaii, and the smoke's not even cleared. Those vultures smelled the fire, and an enterprise appeared. Investment opportunities were
Who are these people?
And here, press the button, do the thing. Go. You could do it. Come on. There we go. Stream Deck took a second. We're back. We're back, everybody. We just enjoyed a lovely conversation with our guest, Halo Benson. That was nice. Make sure to go donate to her efforts down in the description below. Maybe even get yourself a box to mail to people, you know? Do it up. Do whatever you can to free Assange, because that's coming up. But we have some other stories tonight, Care Bear. So
yeah,
what'd you bring?
This will probably so did you bring this story to me? I think you did.
I think so. I think I sent it to you.
Yeah, you brought it to me. You're playing to me in terms of my culture and heritage.
Yeah.
So there's an oil spill in Trinidad and Tobago, which is the islands of my mom's side of the family. So it was written by our friend of the show, Brett Wilkins at Common Dreams. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then excuse me, and then later on tonight, once again, we're going to talk about Netanyahu. I had to do an expletive there, but like he says he cares or claims that he cares or about the hostages, the Israeli hostages that Hamas is allegedly keeping in hostage. Well, we'll find out later that's not necessarily it's not the case at all. So just as a pot shot to all the Zionists who continually post, oh, this hostage is XYZ,
right?
You know, maybe you should look to your leader as to what he's doing,
Why that might be happening? Sure.
And why that might not be happening. So Dave DeCamp is going to report on that.
Friend of the show.
And then and then what you bring for your other.
Well, I brought us a Caitlin Seanstone article because why wouldn't we? About specifically why Israel might be publicizing all their evil nature. So, you know, and why they are trying to warrant emotions both sympathetic and non-sympathetic. So we'll get into that. It's a bit odd, but I think it's important. But yeah, that's what I brought. So, you know, as well as our guest from earlier. But
yeah. This
So-
will probably be more than likely be a very short stream given your TFs, and
Right.
then there's obviously a lot of bigger stories that occurred during the week that we would have reported on if we did it on Wednesday as normal, but we also kind of felt that if you wanted to hear those stories, you have other channels that
Yeah.
you could hear them from.
So
You don't necessarily need our
Y-
opinion.
You know what we want you to do. We'd love for you to go to Patreon and maybe give a monthly membership if you're so able. You can also go to Rockfin and Rumble and give us some super chats or, you know, Rumble rants or Ray tokens, however you want to do that. We'll take that. Or you could go to Cash App right there and leave us some money if you want to donate that way. Look at all these people who already do some of that. Look at them. You know, they're nice to us. They like us here and we like them. But yeah. You ready to get started, Care Bear?
Yeah.
Cool. Let me get to your story here. So here. Come on. There we go. So there was this.
There was this. So this story you brought to me because this happened off the island where my mom's side of the family is from, Trinidad and Tobago. So and right now it's carnival season, so Trinidad is known for this. So shout out to my family who's in Trinidad celebrating carnival right now. But obviously this, you would think obviously an oil spill is bad, but for Trinidad in this case, this is unusually bad. And
Twitter's been feeding me all sorts of gorgeous Brazilian women and Caribbean women because Carnival is happening. So it couldn't possibly be anything I'm doing to my algorithm. You know, it has to be Twitter's fault. So
let's look at Al Jazeera. I'm actually surprised that Al Jazeera actually
covered this?
reported on this. Yeah.
Look at that.
Well, not really, but
Gorgeous Trinidad blue, you know?
But
So-
they're going to give a like a general synopsis as to what happened, and then we'll dive into it a little bit more.
Julio,
A massive oil spill has darkened the waters off the coast of the island nation of Trinidad and Tobago.
Cleaning and restoration can only seriously begin after we brought the situation under control. Right now, the situation is not under control.
Crews raced to clean up the spill from an upturned mystery vessel that ran aground in a harbor near the village of Lembeau, erecting
Mystery
a large
vessel?
yellow
What is
net
this, a
to
fucking
protect.
Scooby-Doo episode, Care Bear? What is it? What? We got a fucking mystery vessel? No one knows what the fuck it's from? That doesn't happen, by the way. Like, every vessel is tracked, so something's up.
The coastline. Prime Minister Keith Rowley declared a state of emergency, saying local authorities have more questions than answers on the leaking vessel.
We don't know who it belongs to.
Right.
We have no idea where it came from.
Exactly.
And we also don't know all that it contains.
Obviously, Old Man Jenkins is the culprit. You know?
Do know it appears to be broken, having made contact.
Appears to be broken. Homie, it broke. It's upside down. It broke.
And is leaking some kind of hydrocarbon that is fouling the water and the coastline. That vessel could have come to us from any kind of operation, especially if the operation is illicit.
The spill clouds the waters and the economic health of the southernmost islands in the Caribbean at the height of Carnival, when tourism is crucial to the local economy. Divers spotted the name Gulfstream on the side of the foundered craft and have identified a length of cable possibly suggesting it had been towed. Adding to the mystery, the nation's emergency management agency says there are no signs of anyone manning the 100-meter-long vessel. The United Nations is working with the government to coordinate an international aid response to the spill. John Hendren, Al Jazeera.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
Do that. Go sub to Al Jazeera. Why not?
Anyone who is curious as to know what my family sounds like,
sure.
they sound like that, right?
Fucking
So basically,
Trinidad.
right. So let's dive into a little bit more. Oops.
Yep.
So friend of the show, Brett Wilkins, reported on this. So he writes, Trinidad and Tobago Mulls historic disaster declaration after ghost ship oil spill. Right now, the situation is not under control, the Prime Minister said Sunday on the eve of the Caribbean nation's world-renowned carnival. The government of Trinidad and Tobago this weekend said it was considering what would be the island nation's first ever level-3 disaster declaration amid a worsening environmental disaster caused by an oil spill from a mysterious ship on the eve of the Caribbean country's famed carnival. As more than 1,000 emergency workers and volunteers raced to clean up the massive spill off Tobago's southwestern coast, Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Keith Lauria told reporters Sunday that cleaning and restoration can only begin as soon as we have the situation under control. Right now, the situation is not under control. The spill came from a vessel of indeterminate origin that capsized off the coast of Cove Echo Industry Park on Wednesday. As Agence France Presse reported, the ship, named Gulfstream, made no emergency calls with no sign of crew and no clear sign of ownership.
Yeah, which
Officials
definitely
said
means that's some suspicious shit. Because essentially if you make an emergency call, every vessel in the area is duty bound to try to help you, right?
Right.
So not making one means, you don't want to be found, pretty much. Or someone didn't want this found,
so this does give the implication that this might have been intentional.
And possibly, or something illicit was going down.
Right.
So,
but anyway, officials said the spill has affected over 25 miles of coastline and has damaged the coral reef and Atlantic beaches, threatening not only the environment and residents' health, but also the vital tourism industry as the country prepares to host this world-renowned carnival this week. Farley Augustine, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, told reporters Saturday that the government may declare a level 3 disaster for the first time in the nation's history. Level 3 spills require substantial international support. Everything indicates that we're going in that direction, Augustine said. There have been hundreds of oil spills of Trinidad and Tobago's coast over the past decade. These accidents rarely attract international media attention and often go unpunished. So actually, that was
well. I mean,
it
looked fairly contained from what I saw. I mean, it seemed one beach was affected, right?
Well, keep in mind, Tobago is
small
in comparison to Trinidad, tiny.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that could be a major tourist test for you know. But also, I mean, it's going to affect wildlife regardless. You know, especially if cleanup is not like Tobago's also not that like flush with cash to be able to like put into cleanup efforts. You know.
Well, Trinidad and Tobago are island. Well, they're essentially twin islands, essentially. So Trinidad is it's more the most populated of the two. Tobago is less inhabitable. So there's not many people that live on Tobago in contrast to Trinidad.
Gotcha.
So, but as I said, Tobago is very small. So the idea that, you know, they're saying that this is historical spill, you know, because Trinidad off the coast has a lot of oil reserves. That's what they're known for. So this, not to say this is not common, but
yeah,
it wouldn't be unusual to hear of an oil spill.
What's unusual is that we don't know where the fuck this boat came from.
Right.
That's what's unusual.
You don't know,
like,
right.
I mean,
and given the timing, given that it's Carnival right now, that's going to be significant, as they said, in terms of tourism. But then I would argue also help, because not a lot of people are going to be looking to clean up a beach when they want to party, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's sure. I mean, the wildlife there, what usually happens is that these oil products get pushed into the sand, you know, at some point. So you end up dealing with it years and years and years later, pretty much, the effects of it. So we'll see. I'm wondering who, you know, Tobago's arch nemesis is, you know, like who would tow the oil ship over there, you know, like old man Jenkins is not playing around this year, man. He had a bad experience last Carnival and wants to get back at that lady. I think that's what it is. This is like lover's scorn gone wrong, you know? So we'll see. But yeah, just, you know, interesting story. I don't think anyone else really covered. So, you know,
no one's going to cover this. But
no Valdez on this one. So, but you know, another fuck up of hydrocarbons in an environment that's not necessary. So, but you know, anything else you wanted to add? When was the last time you were in Trinidad?
Yeah.
You ever been there? So,
well, baby, but not as.
Gotcha.
So really, for all intents and purposes, I haven't been there.
Yeah. You know,
much to the shame of my family.
Yeah.
I'll be there at some point, fam. I promise.
Sure. You know, you go to Barbados, it's the same thing, right? They're the same. They're all the same. All those islands are the same. You know.
I mean, but it's family that I haven't seen on that side. So,
right. So
you know,
beautiful
like
women, great food, delicious rum drinks.
I haven't.
You know, what's not to love? So, you know, but anyway, you know, let us know what you think. Leave a comment down there. Do the thing. Get your little typey fingers going. Hit the share button. Hit the like button. Hit subscribe even. What are you doing? Get with it already. But, all right. You ready for this one, K-Bear? Let's,
I am.
Let me go check. I did get Rockfin working, which is nice. Look at that. Denver Attaway's over there. Maybe a warning shot to those banks in the Nigerian consortium. That's an interesting take. So Mitch McConnell's sister-in-law and CEO of Foremost Group, big container shipping company, also tied in with Central Bank of China, found dead in a car submerged in a pond. Nothing to see there, folks. So that's what they're talking about over on the Rockfins. And if you're on Rumble, make sure you leave us a little chat. Leave us a comment. Let us know you're not a lizard person. It's nice to know. So, yeah. So.
Shout out to Kit. Shout out to Kit from Holland. If you're still here, but he was here briefly.
Oh, was he? Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, we were talking about boats. I didn't even clue in that that's what we were talking about. It is a ghost boat. So, but anyway, let's get a little more serious with weaponizing sympathy. You're wondering, Collin, what that might mean. Well,
no, I know what that means, but
yes, it gets more than that. So, Caitlin Johnstone, one of our favorites here, writes, Israel weaponizes sympathy and victimhood. We've seen it quite often, especially on Twitter. In this dynamic, anything Israel does causes more people to hate Israel. And you wonder why that might be, Collin. You wonder why they might be doing that. So, she writes, in this dynamic, anything Israel does causes more people to hate Israel, both in the Middle East and around the world, to which Israel responds by tearfully proclaiming, see, they hate us. We must defend ourselves against their hostilities. There's a certain particularly toxic personality type which thrives on being hated. They behave in wildly odious and destructive ways, and then when people react to this with hostility, they plunge into poor me victimhood, which they then use to justify more odious and destructive behavior. You may have been unfortunate enough to have encountered such personalities in your own life. They behave atrociously, and then when people react to it, they say, see, I really am being persecuted. Hillary Clinton is a perfect example of this personality type taken to the extreme. People hate her because she's a phony, egomaniacal sadist who has spent her entire political career pushing for mass military bloodshed at every opportunity, but she then frames this hatred as evidence of widespread misogyny and far-right extremism, which is why the world desperately needs Hillary Clinton to fight those things. Any remotely normal person who was both as wealthy and as despised as Clinton would have simply retired from public life to enjoy their hundreds of millions of dollars, blissfully sheltered from the vitriol and condemnation of the common riffraff. But Clinton keeps showing up, adamantly refusing to go away, because the hatred she receives is actually what fuels her entire political dynamic. You want to see some of that hatred, Care Bear? Sure. Let's do it.
War criminal, the people of Libya, the people of Iraq, the people of Syria, the people of Yemen, and the people now of Palestine, as well as the people of America, will never forgive me. I received a human theological seminary.
I'm asking you to leave the delegate and allow us force you out of the delegate.
You will burn!
Can you? Sir.
Let's go. Thank you so much.
Sir, thank you for giving us...
Free Palestine! Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free Palestine!
Look at that. Look at that face right there. Look at that one. That's... Oh, God. Oh,
he didn't know what to
God.
do.
No. No.
Oh, my God!
Very funny. So, but anyway, I love the, like, you will burn statement. That really hit home, too, I think. You're a war criminal. Yes, you are. We see a large-scale version of this same dynamic with the state of Israel. A Jewish anti-Zionist Israeli named Alan Mizrahi posted an interesting piece on Twitter, which I have this article linked in the description below. His tweet is an article in and of itself. I do suggest reading it. It'll be linked in blue right there in that article for you to go click. So please go do so. A few days ago, that's been rattling around in Caitlin's head ever since, wherein he argues that Israel is actually intentionally generating hatred towards itself in order to shore up political power, claiming that Israel and American Jewish organizations took it upon themselves to keep Jews afraid and isolated in a strategy of intentional paranoia. Mizrahi opines that when October 7th hit, the right-wing, nationalistic, paranoid section of the Jewish political spectrum realized it could be translated into political gold. It doesn't seem like Israel is trying to be hated globally. It is actually what it's doing. Mizrahi writes, it is intentionally airing its cruelty and barbarity so that it will remain closed up to the world, thus guaranteeing the continued rule of the paranoia camp. Palestinians are just crash test dummies in this scenario, he adds. Their deaths are used to get people angry and Israel hated, so it becomes even more paranoid. Whether you accept or reject Mizrahi's perspective, you can't deny that Israel's apologists have been seizing on the outrage its actions in Gaza have caused as evidence of anti-Semitic persecution. The ADL has started categorizing pro-Palestine rallies as what? Anti-Semitic incidents.
Anti-Semitic.
Antiseptic, yep, including rallies organized and attended by Jewish groups, leading to the Israeli-friendly mass media reporting to a massive spike in anti-Semitism in the wake of October 7th. Common pro-Palestine chants like "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" have been deceitfully labeled calls for the genocide of Jews, and any criticism of Israel's actions is met with a deluge of accusations of anti-Semitisms. Yeah. So, in this dynamic, anything Israel does cause more people to hate Israel, both in the Middle East and around the world, to which Israel responds by tearfully proclaiming, "See, they hate us. We must defend ourselves against their hostilities." This is not the sort of behavior you would expect from someone in your life, and it shouldn't be the sort of behavior we accept from nuclear-armed ethnostates. As with any other widespread dysfunction, the key to dismantling this one is to spread awareness of what it is that Israel is doing. So, Rania Khalek, nuclear-armed Israel at war with premature babies, but want you to believe Israel is the victim. Good job, Rania. Kind of hitting the nail on the head there. This won't happen until enough awareness has spread of what's really going on in here for there to be a movement toward health. A lot of eyes need to open to the unwholesomeness of this manipulative dynamic, both inside and outside of Israel. Luckily, that does appear to be the case. More and more people are recognizing the unwholesomeness of the pro-Israel victimhood narrative, just as you'd eventually recognize the unwholesomeness of someone in your own life who keeps behaving terribly and then playing the victim. It's going to be messy. 2 steps forward, 1 step back slog, but I think we'll find our way out of this mess eventually. Thoughts, Care Bear, before I finish up?
I mean, yeah, it's interesting that Caitlin brings up the idea of there, like a lot of Zionists are Mizrahi is saying that Zionists are purposely playing the victim as a shield to give them power.
Well, and to continue their actions too, right? Where it's like
right, but kind of justify their actions. Which
it's the class.
We've seen this online over the last few months, and like these Zionists that just appear in my thread and like make their statements which are just off the wall, and people call them out on it, and they're like,
"Oh
my god,
we've seen this on college campuses recently." You know, you'll have pro-Palestine demonstrations, and you'll have this little Jewish American princess come in with her ice spice latte and, cry to the, security guard that they're wanting to kill all of you. Well, clearly not, or the mass of people would have already done so, so.
Let me just clarify something I'm sure there knows that there might be or whenever at this point. But let me just clarify something for you. mother effers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't hate you per se. We don't hate Jews per se. We hate the ideology that you subscribe to, that you feel that you, for whatever reason from the Bible or whatever, that you are the chosen people, that God has given you this certain land. And by the way, you know, the fact that, and people don't talk about this enough, the fact that the British government was willing to give up Uganda and Kenya as as Israel.
And y'all turned it down, by the way. Why'd you do that?
Right. Should say something to you, but you choose to ignore that history or are very ignorant to it. But I digress. But you purposely act this way. Well, you're making the justification that because you're the chosen people, that you're willing to steal land by force for people who lived there for centuries relatively peacefully, in the guise of, oh, this is your chosen land that God has somewhat given to you. And actually, I saw a tweet.
Well, there's a whole bunch of dismantling that.
I should have gave to you, but he mentioned the idea. It's very funny that, you know, Jews claim they're the chosen people, yet in the Bible, like, God had to F them up several times.
Multiple times, right.
Because of how barbaric and how, like, you know, how much against God they were.
All those pillars of salt and whatnot, you know.
Right.
So,
like, God had to, like, literally, like, slap him upside the head several times in order for them to, like, you know, but even, like, if you look at the Bible, you see how, like, crazy they were, even back then, if you believe in that.
Half of Deuteronomy is telling them what not to do. So, you know, but yeah, I think it's interesting that this might be purposeful, you know. So Caitlin wants to kind of continue this point. So she writes, if I wanted to increase anti-Semitism, I imagine I'd do lots of really easy stuff, evil stuff, under a Star of David flag, while adamantly insisting that my actions are inseparable from the Jewish people and the Jewish faith. I'd kill children by the thousands and commit general atrocities. To really help anti-Semitism spread, I'd do everything I can to make people less vigilant against it. I try very hard to make the warning label of anti-Semitism look ridiculous and meaningless. Circulate narratives that anyone who opposes crimes against humanity hates Jews. Frame peace marches as hate crimes. Brand calls for justice as calls for the genocide of Jews. I'd falsely cry wolf as many times as possible in the most self-evident, absurd ways as I could think of in order to desensitize everyone to alarm bells about the real spread of anti-Jewish hate. And next slide. I suppose I'd also want to research long-standing anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and do everything I can and to feed into them. Jews control the media. I'll make sure the media are widely biased in favor of the Star of David flag. Jews control the government. Make sure governments are bending over backwards to facilitate the crimes of the Star of David nation. Child blood sacrifices. Make sure the war crimes perpetrated in the Star of David nation are killing as many kids as possible. And don't forget about no secret tunnels. We got to talk about the secret tunnels in this regard. But I'll do everything I can to make sure the Jews carrying out the atrocities under the Star of David flag make themselves look as inhuman as possible, thereby dehumanizing ordinary Jews in the eyes of the public. They should film themselves doing the most evil things imaginable while laughing and celebrating their deeds, and then share those videos on social media. The more viral content they can create with the horrific acts, the better. These steps would create the perfect environment for very real acts of hatred towards members of the Jewish faith, which I suppose could then be used to drum up to support further atrocities, thereby making the very real anti-Semitism even worse. This would create a self-reinforcing feedback loop of violence and hatred, creating steadily escalating anti-Semitism throughout our society that someday could theoretically lead to something as terrible as history has ever seen. Of course, I would never do such a thing, because it would be a terrible evil to inflict upon the Jews of the world. If such a thing happened, it wouldn't be the fault of the Jews, many of whom are amongst the most kind-hearted and upstanding people on earth. It would be the fault of the governments and media outlets who paved the way to such an outcome. Any power structure which created or fed into such a dynamic would be unforgivably depraved and would need to be stopped for the good of humanity. Care Bear, closing thoughts before I get to this.
Well, it's funny. We have a friend of a show who we're not going to say who to protect them right now.
Yep.
But they mentioned they're in the region right now, and they mentioned to me that there's more dissent happening in Israel right now than there is here.
Be sure.
Surprisingly, you would not know that given how little we've seen it, in the media and otherwise. But they assured me that, for what they're seeing right now, that there is dissent among Israelis in regards to what's happening in there as well. So the idea that, and I'm saying this more for Zionists in the West, who are basically being like, oh, we're being mistreated, or oh, we're being hated and all this kind of stuff. No, your own people hate your guts too.
Right.
Are you going to call them anti-Semitic? You want to call your own anti-Semitic?
They do.
Because
Michael Rappaport is calling Finkelstein right now self-hating. Yeah. Oh, no, they do all the time. So,
right.
Yeah. But,
that's not going to make it it's going to make it worse for Jews around the world, because you're going to eat each other in order to justify your own actions of what you're doing in Israel, Palestine right now.
It's the emotional Hannibal directive. Yes, that's pretty much what that is. In that same vein, here is anti-Zionist Jewish academic Professor Chaim Bresheth, right? And we talked about ceasefire before, correct, Collin? And some of the issues we might have with the wording. Here he is to explain that in a bit better context. So we'll let him do the talking.
What we want, of course, is not a ceasefire. A ceasefire is nothing, because a ceasefire, it means that the fire will start again. No.
Did you hear that, Care Bear? What did he say?
Not a ceasefire. A ceasefire is nothing, because a ceasefire, it means that the fire will start again.
Means the fire would start again. Okay.
Right.
No, we want the end of the Zionist project and a new Palestine where Jews, Christians, and Muslims can live like they did in Al-Andalus, like they lived in Palestine, like they lived in the Ottoman Empire, like they lived in South Africa, like they lived under the Mughals, like they lived in most of North Africa and the Middle East, without genocide, without anti-Semitism or Islamophobia, without pogroms, without Holocaust. They lived together. And I think that's what we want. And I think that's what we will get. So I think the stakes are very high here. This is not just for Palestine that we're fighting, but we're fighting for a new Middle East, the end of Islamophobia as a policy and as an action by the West, the end of apartheid in Palestine, and for a kind of convivencia, living together like we always did in the Middle East.
So, any questions? I think that sums it up.
But I mean, Nick from RBN said it best that Zionists are probably one of the biggest Karens that we know of right now. You know, just the victim shaming and the shaming that they do to others who are trying to promote justice for what's happening in Palestine. It's just really sick, and it's really maddening that there are actually people who think the way that they think And it's like, can I make any sense of you to understand what you're saying and your actions that implicate that is wrong. And it's just like they're just so brainwashed that, or they just don't care.
Right.
I think it's a mix of both, but just how adamant they are that they're justified in their actions because, because again, saw a tweet today that I commented on. Now, granted, the tweet that I got was doctored, but the intent of the tweet, the real tweet, didn't change the meaning any more than this guy saying. Ben Freeman on Twitter was just like, Jews have been, Jews are the only people group that have been under genocide multiple times. And I'm like,
you sure about that? Are you sure about that?
Are you sure about that?
Rwanda, for one, would like to have a word.
Half of Africa, like 90% of Africa, would
basically
like to have a
all
word.
of Africa would like to have a word. With
The Armenians, the multiples. I'm just saying, South America.
It does concern me because, in a way, because it makes me wonder what these people think of someone like me in terms of, if you really believe this, like what you're saying is that, you for some reason have gone through all of this suffering, and then for someone like me, my ancestors and just my community, I would argue has gone through way more, and still, like
the cop's not gonna pull them over for driving black. Like that's not
right.
Well,
they're
that's
not
not
going to pull
happening.
them over for being Jewish.
Right.
Yeah.
But
they will pull me over, as you said, for being black. So it just makes me wonder what they think of someone like me, really. Like, in terms of my existence. Like, because I might say, no, not might, have said, I don't buy into your Zionist ideology of what you say, and I'm going to call you out on it, and you can call me an anti-Semite, and I have already said this on Twitter. Like, I do not receive that.
There's literally posts from Israel where they're like, we had a rocket almost hit us, yet they went to go shop at the Dolce & Gabbana store that day and got a new iPad, and meanwhile, in Gaza, children are starving, by the thousands. So,
we didn't talk about. We would have talked about this on Wednesday if we went live, but just given
the bombing of
Rafah over the weekend, and
the UNRWA headquarters being
all I saw on my feed over for 24 hours was dead bodies and blood strewn,
dismembered children on the walls.
And all these Zionists were like, we saved 2 hostages, of which they were rescued
already, supposedly
back from December.
Right.
So you're making up these stories to kind of justify your actions for war at the cost of people who are literally losing their lives, due to what you claim is your birthright.
Right.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's craziness. Well, if you're a Zionist and you're triggered right now watching this, leave a comment. Let us know how we upset you. Share this with all your Zionist friends. Tell them how terrible we are. Hit the downvote button. I don't care. Anyone else, they can hit the like button. Hit subscribe. Maybe you want to get triggered again. I don't know. So what do you want from me? But anyway, let's go check Rockford and Rumble, see what's up there. Denver Adaway, the Zionist Jews are using the Jewish face as their own, which it ain't. I agree. Yeah, the sewer tunnel Jews story didn't help. I agree. The guy at the ADL threw his computer across the room that day when, there's The Jews with the hats. They had the hats coming out of tunnels. I mean, you couldn't get more, like, it's like guys were trying not to look like New York rats. We're trying, you know? So, but anyway, speaking of, you ready to get to your story?
Yeah, so speaking of hostages,
Yeah.
good leeway there. We're going to once again talk about this guy, who I don't think gets nearly enough. Well, they say people say they hate him, but they're basically bending down and licking his boots, essentially.
Yeah.
So talking about hostages, of how people, were kind of like, a lot of people online were kind of praising, the IDF. Hey, over the weekend, hey, we got 2 hostages out,
Yeah.
from the clutches of Hamas.
Right.
And then shout out to Nico, who tweeted this out, I believe, on Monday.
Fuck.
Them hostages.
Who said, bring the hostages home. This is an article from our friends at anymore.com, friend of the show, Dave the Camp.
Yep.
So we're going to read into this. Again, this is another short article.
Dave does lovely, short, beautifully digestible, like a paragraph even. It's great. Really, go bookmark antiwar.com. Go look at their stuff. I know their website needs updating. It's okay. They're working on it. They're getting there. So
yeah, not that user friendly, but I did pull this article where Dave writes, Netanyahu unilaterally vetoes further hostage deal talks. Huh? Like
again. Further.
Right.
That means he's done this a few times.
Right.
Yeah.
A group representing hostage families said the move was a death sentence for the Israelis remaining captive in Gaza. So Dave writes, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vetoed further hostage deal talks without consulting his war cabinet, infuriating families of Israeli hostages in Gaza, the Times of Israel reported. The Hostages and Missing Families Forum, a group representing relatives of most of the Israeli hostages in Gaza, said it was stunned by Netanyahu's move to end the talks. It appears that some of the members of the cabinet decided to sacrifice the lives of hostages without admitting it, the group said, adding the decision was a death sentence for Israeli captives. Israeli media is reporting that War Cabinet members Ben Gantz and Gadi Eisenkot of the National Unity Party are furious over Netanyahu's move and met on Wednesday to discuss their response.
Who's furious?
The veto came after.
Who's Prime Minister Netanyahu? Yeah. Cabinet members, so members of the Knesset, war cabinet members are like upset about it. Like, hey, you're fucking this up, dog. Like, okay. Oh, there you go.
Thank you. The veto came after Mossad chief David Barnea met with U.S., Egyptian, and Qatari officials in Cairo on Tuesday to discuss a potential hostage deal. Before the meeting, Netanyahu rejected an outline for a proposal drawn up by his top officials and instructed Barnea to only listen and not offer any new proposals. Egypt and Qatar are looking to hold another meeting yesterday, but Israel has said it will not attend. The Times report said that in Israel's absence, Hamas officials will go to Cairo. Israeli officials have dismissed Hamas's latest offer for a hostage deal as delusional. The Palestinian group proposed a 135-day truce to facilitate the release of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners and to work towards a permanent ceasefire. So again, Hamas has already met, called for a solution to this. And in addition to that, they also wanted IDF troops out of Gaza as part of
this deal.
As part of the deal. You know,
which are like, nah, fuck that. We need to be able to keep oppressing you.
Right.
So
Hamas wants Israel to release 1,500 Palestinians, and this is also significant because many of these Palestinians are locked up for essentially crimes like throwing a rock at like maybe
Right.
an IDF officer or like an Israeli or something. Like
Yeah.
something really minor in my mind, that they're locked up for. Yeah, so that's just what Hamas is also wanting to
Okay.
have as part of their deal. And Netanyahu's like, nah. So Hamas wants Israel to release 1,500 Palestinians, which is reportedly a major sticking point for the Israeli side. Netanyahu has an interest in continuing the slaughter of Palestinians in Gaza, as polling has shown Israelis want him to resign or for new elections to be held once the military operation is over. The Israeli leader is planning to launch a major assault on Rafah, which happened, the southern Gaza Strip city on Egypt's border that is packed with 1.5 million Palestinians.
Happened during the Super Bowl.
Right. An Israeli invasion of Rafah will inevitably kill a huge number of civilians since the majority of Palestinians are sheltered in tents on the streets of the city.
Keep in
Despite
mind,
expressing some
they made Rafah one of the safe zones.
Right.
And now they're bombing it. So.
Right.
Yep.
Despite expressing some concerns, the U.S. has given Israel the green light to attack Rafah and will not impose any consequences if civilians are killed.
Didn't Biden have a whole flub of this where he said something along the line of like U.S. military attack on Rafah or whatever? Something along those lines. If I remember correct. So. Yep.
So make sure you share this with your friends, fam.
Yep.
The ones who claim that, Hamas isn't coming to the table with anything, or Hamas, but Hamas, everything, like Hamas has the hostages. Well,
yep.
So it again, it's like no one's necessary. Well, not enough people, I would argue, are calling out. But I say that, but Netanyahu in of itself is not the problem here. It's the occupation and the ideology of Zionism that is promoting this idea. So you can get rid of Netanyahu all you want, but they're going to get another prime minister who probably is going to think along the same lines as Netanyahu is. Hell, they've had this kind of situation over the last 75 years since the state of Israel has been established. So, like, to get rid of Netanyahu is killing one roach in a den full of them.
Yeah.
It's not going to help the situation in terms of, the plight of the Palestinians right now. And right now they're in basically trapped and with nowhere to go. They can't go back home because their homes are decimated.
Well, and
in the
Egypt is building infrastructure to keep them from being pushed there. Like as a direct result against what Israel's trying to do by pushing them into Egypt, which will inevitably, they'll push themselves right into the Sinai and head towards the Nile like they want to. So, which they have open claims of doing, which I love. They always claim, Putin wants to take over the world. Once he takes Ukraine, it's the rest of Europe, which he's made no indications he ever has wanted to do. Yet, Israel has openly claimed how much they want to take over and over and over again. And yet no one listens to those pleas. So, yeah, I mean, just the fun stuff all over, they bombed the aid headquarters because supposedly it gave power to Hamas tunnels. They've, and you want to talk about hostages, pretty much since it started, they've killed their own people with the Hannibal Directive, with you know, they've flooded those same tunnels with seawater and concrete, and half the hostages who've been polled are like, we thought Israel would kill us, you know? So, like, because that's what they know would have happened. So, and it's usually they turn down these hostage deals because they don't want to end the genocide. So, clearly, that's a sticking point for them. So, you know, I don't know. So, but in the Zionist fucking, you know, ethno state, that would be nice. So, anyway, anything else you wanted to add? I think that's pretty much it.
No. Yeah.
So
I just given that we normally don't do, well, actually we used to do Fridays.
Yeah.
Well, at least we would record a segment on Fridays.
Right.
But yeah, we wanted this to be a short stream, given that we know, just to help you recover, and then but we wanted to kind of keep on track for
upcoming
100th
weeks
episode, which
Yeah.
is in March. Don't know the
it's-
date. I forgot the
It's
date
the
off the top of
6th.
my head.
I do believe.
This is it?
Yep. Should
Or
be.
is it the 13th?
Yeah, 2 weeks from now. So
No.
next week's the 21st.
No.
Week after that's the 28th. And then the Wednesday after that's the 6th. So that should be our 100th. So
No, this is our 96th
96.
episode.
Okay. Well, 13th then.
13th.
Yeah, one of those.
I think the 6th is our 2-year anniversary.
Okay, my math might be all sorts
I
of
think
wrong.
that's what
So
you're thinking, and then I think the 6th is our 2-year anniversary of when we started 9N.
yeah.
And then
So
it's our 100th episode the following week.
But yeah, just gotta go
That's
talk to Rob and make sure all that's settled and we're good with that. So hopefully we have some upcoming guests too that should be looking forward to. So
But yeah, let us know who we do listen to your recommendations. We definitely have gotten a few of guests that you will like on the show.
Yeah.
Not for the lack of trying, but but it is a numbers game on YouTube that obviously the bigger subs you have, the
Yeah.
more likely you are to get
guests and whatnot. So
especially of quality,
do this.
caliber to come on.
hit that
So-
subscribe button. You want to see us have some more interesting people on. So
Yeah.
But I think that's just about it. Do we know what's coming up this week? Finding News Wednesday again.
Yeah, unless something happens, but we will be back on Wednesday. I
So-
would imagine Crab will be
doing some stuff.
going live for Politically Homeless on Monday.
Yeah.
Watch Angel just did a live stream just before us, so
Mhm.
go watch his replay. Shout out to Angel for ending early, so we're able to come on at this time.
Yeah.
And I believe that's it. We may have an anti-war stream at some point, but
Coming
not
up.
sure when.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Well, we'll let you know on the Twitters and all of that stuff. But yeah, other than that, I think that's it.
Cool. Fantastic then. Well, as always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone.
We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Bye, have a great time.